tonight. I hope you all enjoyed Top Gun Maverick. This is great. Look at this crowd, full house here tonight, and I'm glad you saw it on the big screen because that's the way to see it. So without further ado, before I introduce our panelists here, I want to acknowledge in the audience tonight is the costume designer Marlene Stewart. Where are you? Please stand right there. Stand up. Stand up. There she is. All right, and you may remember him because you don't have to have a long memory. You saw the movie. As Coyote, Greg Tarzan Davis. Where are you, Greg? There he is. Fantastic. And let me first introduce you to the director of this film. He's done so many great films. Tron, the actual sequel there, and Only the Brave, and oh my God, Spiderhead, which you can see on Netflix right now. So many others. Please welcome director Joseph Kosinski. And we have, let's put him right there because he is so good in this film as Rooster and did a great job. You've seen him in so many movies. So please welcome Miles Teller. And if ever there was a producing legend in this town, it's this man. He has probably made every movie you've ever seen, including tonight's. So please welcome Jerry Bruckheimer. All right, guys, sit down. And as the credits roll behind us, it takes a village to make any film, including this one, as you can see rolling by here. So let me give a shout out to the incredible artisans who put together Top Gun Maverick from top to bottom here. As you see their names. Jerry, let me start with you. 36 years since the last Top Gun, the first Top Gun, and I imagine there have been conversations over the years about, such a successful movie, how to follow it up. And it's taken this long. What was the trajectory there in bringing this to the screen?
Well, it took us a long time, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
After the first one came out, we all wanted to revisit it, but everybody got so busy. Tom went off and continued his great career, and we went off and made a whole bunch of movies. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that we really got serious, and Joe came in and kind of made it all happen.
And it's as simple as that. 36 years later, here it is. To me, it's phenomenal that you could get it going again, get it onto this level, where I'll be honest with you, I think it tops the original. And I can't say that about that many sequels. I think it has new added weight now as well. And there's Tom Cruise. I mean, what can you say about this guy who came back 36 years later, took on this role again, and killed it?
He didn't want to be in this movie at first. That's what Jerry didn't tell me when we flew to Paris.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He did not want to do it.
He didn't want to do it. In fact, my first sense of it was when the night we got to Paris to do this pitch, Tom called me and he said, "Joe, thanks so much for coming out here. No matter what happens tomorrow, it'll be great to see you." And I was like,
and you had made a picture, Oblivion.
yes, yeah, we had made Oblivion together, and that's when I was like, gosh, I don't think Tom wants to make this movie. So we went to the set of Mission the next day. Jerry and I went and we, pulled Tom out of filming for about 20 minutes, and that's where a director has to, show his goods, and I had 20 minutes to pitch the movie.
No pressure, huh?
No, I mean, well, yeah, it was, I was in the zone, I guess, we were so prepared and had gone through it, and I knew Jerry was on board, so we took him kind of through the movie and how we were going to shoot it and what it was going to be called, because it was Top Gun 2 at the time. And I said, no, we can't call it Top Gun 2, we got to call it Top Gun Maverick. And I think that sealed the deal.
You like the sound of that?
So, yeah, I mean, Jerry will tell it, but Tom pulled his phone out and called Paramount and said, we're making this movie.
Congratulations to you for that kind of job that you convinced him, and it's a great concept that you had and everything. Miles, I know the next one's going to be called Top Gun Rooster.
I agree.
And we hope there will be a next one. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be after this. But you, I heard, were a little reluctant at first too, actually, in taking on this role.
I was. I mean, I think anytime that you're thinking about signing on to a big movie, this was before I even had the part, and I really was just thinking about what being in Top Gun Maverick, what that could potentially do to my life, and it has been a fairly significant change. It's all been positive, but it was just something that I really took seriously as far as trying to envision what that would be like. And to be honest, I didn't see myself as a big kind of blockbuster movie actor. I really hadn't dipped my toe in that. Looking back on it, I think it was very foolish of me to think that way. But I was just I try and take everything into account with a film, and I knew what being a part of something like this, how that can affect your life, and so it was something I thought long. I actually didn't have too long to think about it because they delivered a script to me in Hawaii, and they said somebody's waiting for you to finish the script. You have to give it right back to them, and then you're gonna have to fly, back and audition for this thing like right away. So it moved pretty quick.
Wow. Well, it worked out.
Yeah. but really, I mean, when you have Jerry involved, and Joe was my really first kind of linchpin into this whole thing. I had worked with Joe. We've done another movie, since Top Gun, and I just have all the respect in the world for Joe, and he's just such a kind person. I wasn't sure about Tom. He's kind of. No, I'm joking. I was put in such a great position to win, and we all really won on this film, and it starts at the top, and you can't say enough about what Tom Cruise, number one on the call sheet, what that brings to your film. We're all very lucky to have him.
Yeah, he is the moving force here. Obviously, this wouldn't happen without him, but he's a genuine, real deal as an actor, as a producer as well, Jerry. He's also a real producer, a real partner for you in this too, I think.
Right. He's much better than I am, I gotta tell you. He's really good. He thinks about everything. He's 10 steps ahead of everybody in thinking about what's coming next. And he designed, along with Joe, all the flying sequences. He did all the prep work with the actors. They were training in these planes for 3 months, all designed by Tom. This was the hardest thing you can do as an actor, not only to act, but to be in these jets going Mach 5, Mach 7, and trying to turn the camera on and look at your makeup and figure out where the sun is. They'd be up there for 2 hours, they'd get beat up, they'd come down on the ground. We couldn't see the footage until they landed. We'd look at it and send them right back up if Joe and Tom weren't happy. So they really took a beating in. They worked so hard, because Tom works so hard. You just have to, when he's there, he's the first one there and the last one to leave. And all the young actors look up to him. They want his career because he's got a phenomenal career. He shows you what it takes to have that kind of career because he puts every ounce of his being into every movie that he makes.
Yeah, Joe, I have to ask you about that, which he alluded to. You couldn't even see the footage till the planes come back down. This is the real deal. We see all kinds of CGI, computer generated special effects. We've gotten numb to it almost in the movie business. This is very close to the real deal. You had real pilots, they were there. Miles, you had to learn how to fly. All of that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, they were all being flown by real Navy pilots, Top Gun pilots, some lieutenants that haven't been to Top Gun yet. But the reason the footage is so great is because we have the best aviators in the world flying for us. And they just did a spectacular job. And this movie wouldn't be what it is without the men and women of the U.S. Navy who just gave everything to helping us tell the story.
Logistically, what was that like in trying to pull these scenes off? Because that's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a year, over a year of planning. It took a year just to figure out how to get 6 cameras into the cockpit. When we first started, they said, we don't know if you'll be able to get 1 in there. And we ended up figuring out how to get 6. And all 6 cameras were wired to a switch that Miles would have to flip in the airplane to turn the cameras on and off. He'd have to do his own makeup. He'd have to make sure his visor was good. He'd have to do a sound check by tapping.
Well, he's also acting.
He's in the airplane. He's setting it all up, and then once he starts rolling the cameras, he tells his pilot, and they execute the scene on their own up in the air. So,
I mean, not to interrupt, but it got to the point where, so we would do a briefing before we would go up, and that's with, various members of the Navy there, all the pilots, the production side is there, Tom is there, and Tom wanted us, we got to the point where we would be leading the briefing. So as the actor, we're telling Top Gun pilots how we are gonna fly this, how we're gonna fly it. And talk about just imposter syndrome, but that speaks to really the training and the program that Tom developed for us. And by the time we got to that point, we all could stand up there and tell production, this is what the camera's gonna be at, this is what the sun angle's gonna be at, this is the altitude, this is what we're flying. My wingman is here when I do this maneuver on the stick, then he moves up here, and it was so incredibly complicated. And then Jerry's right, you would get back and you would just pray that the light was good and that it looked good, and there was no worse feeling than because you watch it in front of everybody, it's bad. When everybody knows it's bad, the acting's not good enough, it's not dynamic enough, there's some technical things, the frame, something kind of went wrong. And every time you went up there, you feel like you're going to puke. Some people were getting nauseous and getting sick almost every time they went up. And we just bonded together. I think you bond through collective suffering. I think that's always kind of the.
And I got to give a shout out to Tarzan, who did the scene where he blacks out. Was one of the first things we shot. And when we put that footage in and played it for everyone and saw what he did in that scene, we all just burst into cheers because we knew we had something really special, and he kind of set the bar for everyone after that point. So
good for you, man. Yeah. That's amazing. And let me point out, not just Tarzan up there, but an incredible ensemble cast that is true diversity in casting too, right down to a woman pilot, which was not in the first Top Gun, and that's the reality of the Navy pilots now.
Yeah, I think the first Top Gun represented what the Navy was like in 1985 when they shot it. And when we went to Top Gun in 2018, we saw diversity, we saw men and women flying for Top Gun, so we made sure that, our film was the same. And every time you see Monica Phoenix in the film flying, she's being flown by a female pilot. So all those scenes were done by female aviators. And yeah, I think the bond that you guys had with your pilots was really interesting. You guys really, had a couple different bonds, but they were. There's a scene in the movie when Rooster is going onto the target and he turns upside down and Miles falls out of his belt and hits his head on the canopy. That was not planned.
I was so mad at myself because I was like, I'm now gonna have to reshoot this thing. I was like, I don't want to have to reshoot it because when you're pulling 7.5 Gs, that's 1,500 pounds of force, and so even just to try and move your head from 12 to 3 takes so much effort, and you're pushing off this thing just to get your head there, and then you're coming back, and it was just so challenging. The bar was set incredibly high, and but it was like a year. It was a year, 3.5 months of flight training, and then 8 months, and you're flying all the time. And even before we got in the jets, we had to get certified in the water in case we ever had to eject over water, and we had to pass the same thing naval aviators have to pass. Where they strap you to a chair and they blindfold you, and then they submerge you underwater, and then they flip you upside down slowly
In the water.
It was nuts.
This is, in its own way, it's kind of method acting. You are really going into the experience of it.
What a film.
It's just amazing. Jerry, can you talk a little bit about the casting process, what you were looking for in doing this kind of ensemble and getting these actors? Because I really think all of them are so good. And I want to mention John Hamm, too, who I thought was great in this movie. Not always the most sympathetic character, but I thought he was just so solid. And right down the line, everybody. How difficult was it to cast? Because you have a real eye for that.
Denise Chamian, who did the casting, did a phenomenal job, and her and Joe really sat down and went through thousands of tapes and kept bringing actors back, talking to them, and presenting them to Tom and myself. But they did an amazing job of casting everybody, and the diversity, and just what the actors had to go through. And we had to explain to them, listen, you're going to be in those airplanes, you're going to be in a prop plane, an aerobatic prop, a jet, and then an F-18, and you're going to feel these G-forces. It's really going to be difficult. And they all raised their hand, they're ready to go. I'm sure they didn't realize what they were really in for. But in the end, we got a terrific movie. But what's so interesting about this film, it's got audience back into theaters around the world, not just here. And other movies have done it too, but nothing like Top Gun, because Top Gun gets you from 8 to 80, and most people don't see it once, they see it multiple times, because there's so much entertainment in it. And the authenticity comes through, but also great acting. It really is. It's so hard to do what these young actors have done, and Tom, his performance is flawless. It looks simple, but it's really hard. And what makes the film special is the emotion, and that's what gets all of us. It's the scenes with Iceman, it's the scenes with Miles, it's the story about his mom not wanting him to fly, and Tom carrying the burden of that weight on his shoulders. That's the magic sauce for this movie. It's what you feel. You feel something when you finish this film. You feel better than when you walked in. There's completion. And the fact that this film was bigger foreign than it was domestic just shows you the message that we in Hollywood have given to the world by pure entertainment. And that's what we try to do. We try to entertain audiences, and that's what Tom's all about. The reason he loves what he does is because he's entertaining people. And every time he picks a movie, he says, I want to make a movie for an audience. And he works so hard, harder than anybody that I've ever worked with, on trying to entertain you.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I just want to re-emphasize the word that he used, emotion, because that's key here with all the mechanics and all the planes and everything that goes into the making of this movie. The whole souffle falls if it doesn't have an emotional hook for the audience.
Well, that was the first thing, when I presented the kind of 4 tenets of Top Gun Maverick, the first thing I said that I pitched on was the emotional spine of this story, which is Maverick's relationship with Rooster. And this idea of a reconciliation set against a mission that would take them both across enemy lines. And once Tom heard that, I could see the wheels in his head start to spin, because all of a sudden he had a way into this movie from an emotional point of view. And that's why I knew, Top Gun is the original Top Gun really is a drama at its core, wrapped in this kind of big action movie. And I knew this film had to be the same thing, which is why I thought Miles would be great for it, just because I knew Rooster had to have an actor of very high caliber that could pull off the dramatic scenes, that could pull off the humorous scenes, and I figured we'd teach him how to handle an airplane. But he was always at the top of my list. In fact, I even brought a picture of Miles to that first meeting. I didn't tell Miles that, but he was always at the top of the list for me.
You always carry a picture of me in your wall.
And Glenn Powell actually went out for that role, and he's so good in this film. And I think it was you, Jerry, that actually convinced Glenn Powell that maybe he didn't get Rooster, but he was right for another role. Is that right?
Yeah, when I saw his performance, I said he's perfect for the other character for Hangman. And we called his agent. We said we want him. He didn't get the Rooster role, but we'd like him to come in for Hangman. His agent said, no chance. He's not doing it. And I went to Tom and I said, Tom, his agent doesn't want to send him in. And Tom said, tell him I'll meet with him. So I called the agent back and it said, Tom would like to meet with him. And he said, fine. He respects Tom, but just know he's not doing that part. So don't be disappointed if he walks out and disappoints Tom. So Tom sat with him, and of course, Glenn would like to have Tom's career, and he said, I'd love to have your career. And Tom said, don't pick the part, pick the movie and make the part great. And that's exactly what he did. And I don't think he has that agent anymore.
And you just heard a perfect example of what a producer does. That's great, and that was exactly right for this film. When you see the movie, you say, this is what it has to be. Miles is perfect as Rooster. He's perfect there. It's just all down the line. Jennifer Connelly, everybody in the movie seemed, it's kismet. I don't know, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, every time I make a movie, I realize more and more how important casting is. I mean, it really is 80% of the job. If you cast it correctly, you've really set yourself up to, maybe make it through. So, I'd worked with Miles before. I had worked with Jennifer on Only the Brave. So they were, two names that I put forward to Jerry and Tom very early. And luckily, they both agreed. It's amazing that, Jennifer's been working as long as Tom has, maybe longer, because she started at 11 years old. And the fact they had never crossed paths in all the movies they made was exciting to me, because I thought this would be the perfect movie to see them together.
It's amazing. Just right down the line, before we go, there is going to be a reception here, and you're going to be able to mingle and talk and do all of that, so that's going to happen. But I just have to mention the music. Hans Zimmer's score is so good, but also so true to the Top Gun spirit. The Lady Gaga song, use of Kenny Loggins, all of that.
Yeah, we had Harold Faltermeyer came back and brought those themes too. So, we wanted at the opening of the film, we wanted it to tell the audience this is a Top Gun movie. So, you have the Harold Faltermeyer score with the bell, you got the Kenny Loggins. Hans has been working with Jerry for years. Jerry introduced me to him, and he was excited to work on the film. And the one element that surprised us all was when Lady Gaga sent us this song. And from the first moment we played it, we knew it was something special. And when Hans heard it, he realized the melody was so strong that he could use that melody throughout the film as a love theme. So you hear that melody woven through the score all the way through until the end when you finally hear Lady Gaga sing it. So it's kind of been programmed into you in a way that only Hans can do it.
Yeah. It's amazing. We're sitting here talking about a movie that opened in May, and it's still in the same theaters that it opened. That gives me hope for movie theaters. It gives me hope that we can see it like it used to be done, and these theaters can play, and word of mouth is the best thing. And people tell their friends, and this is an example of that happening in the business again. And so this is for everybody, not just Paramount, which it also brought back in a big way, but everybody. And it's good for the movie business. Thank you guys for coming out here. It's going to be a reception upstairs. Please join us. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.